Hello, I'm Brooke Brown, Marketing and Communications Consultant. I'm joined today by Graham Williamson. Graham has a bachelor's degree from the University of Toronto, an MBA from Bond University in Australia. 22 years ago, he started his own IT consulting business and he's now a senior analyst for Kapinga Coal. In 2009, Graham released his first book on identity management, a primer, and now Graham is releasing his second book on identity management called Identity Management from a Business Perspective. Graham, maybe it would be a good idea if you could define identity management for us.
Identity management is very important for companies. Basically, companies have to manage their identity information that they store within the organization, and that could be on their staff, contractors, business partners, their customers. Managing this information is exceedingly important, and when I say managing it, there's basically 4 steps. There's the collection of it. For staff and for contractors, you want to have some sort of provisioning mechanism that does that automatic collection. Then there's the storage of that information. You need to make sure that it's stored securely. One thing that will ruin a business very quickly is some sort of data breach where customer information is lost. Then there's the actual usage of that information. I see a lot of companies that basically are wasting money by not managing that identity properly. They have people typing information in multiple times and things like that. And finally, there's the destruction of that data. You cannot, by law, keep data once it's aged to the point where it's no longer useful. So looking at how that's done and managing that identity cycle is very important.
What made you want to write this book?
There was 2 main instigators for the book, or drivers. The first is this whole area of identity management is changing very rapidly. Over the last 3 years, we've seen some phenomenal improvements in how identity information can be used. For instance, network analyzers now can monitor the information that's being used on that network by different people. And then as soon as an anomaly comes along that might indicate a data breach, they can shut things down. Very useful technology that people need to find out about. The second driver, if you like, is some of my observations within organizations looking at abrogation of duty at the C-level. So we're seeing CIOs who don't bother to learn about the new technology. They don't bother to set policy for their organization. And in effect, they're leaving that policy up to IT managers, IT administrators. We can't survive doing that. We need to make sure that that gets improved. So I wanted to write this book from a business perspective so that the C-level managers can understand what they need to manage within their organization.
There's 12 chapters in this book. Are there any that are your favorites?
I guess probably my favorite is the chapter on consumerization. Consumerization is going to be very important over the next few years. In fact, I would say over the next 5 years, we're going to, everybody in society, notice a marked change in how companies promote their product to us, how they use the information they maintain on us to drive businesses. It's often called digital transformation. And it's the companies that make changes to allow them to take advantage of consumerization that are going to have a profitable future. Unfortunately, there's going to be a few that aren't going to make that transition, and I call them the digital transformation tragics. And we're seeing along come the millennial. The millennial is someone who comes of age in around the turn of the century, and they have a totally different approach to purchasing and to consuming. They want an experience, and it's the company that'll give them that experience that will benefit from this digital transformation. They can only do that if they properly use the identity management information that they maintain on those consumers in order to then use that information to drive more business. It started with the banks. The banks were forced under the anti-money laundering rules to initiate Know Your Customer. And the banks have done a reasonable job of that. But now other businesses need to understand how they use the information that they maintain on their consumers in order to drive new business. So the consumerization part of it, I think, is the one area that's crucial to both consumer and to businesses going forward. Yeah, that was my favorite chapter.